What is going on? Welcome back. 3rd and 20 podcast. We're on episode 48. Steed, how you doing?
I'm doing well, dude. Schedule release out today. We already know a couple games. Get the classic little Falcons versus Eagles. Should start 1-0 because the Eagles are hot garbage. But I'm ready to get it.
All right, so topics on the screen for those watching on the tube. For those not, we are doing over-unders again. Second season of over-unders. Let's see, what were the records last year? So I went 21-8-2. I don't know where I put Steed's. Steed went 18-12-2, so we were both pretty damn positive on the over-unders last year. Combined record of 39-20-4. We actually hit both. Well, you can only tie. So like Giants and Bears both hit their tie last year at 6-8. We're doing AFC East. Start off. Who do you want to go first? What team?
Should we just get the easy one out of the way? The Jets.
Yeah, we could talk about the Jets. So we're both hitting the under, I'm pretty sure, on the Jets, right?
Yeah.
So the Jets over-under is at 6.5 wins. One thing that's interesting is that there's obviously the extra game this year, which can really screw things up from an over-under perspective. So last year there were 16 unders, 14 overs, and 2 pushes. This year with that extra game, maybe a couple more overs hit, maybe a couple more unders, who knows?
Yeah.
So Jets, obviously Jets, completely new coaching staff, and they had a ton of draft picks. So let me ask you this, like the Jets, you're thinking they're better than last year, right?
Just roster wise and like coaching staff wise, yes, I would think they're better. The thing is, like, one reason I go under is Zach Wilson still doesn't have all the tools there needed. Like, of course, because like we know this is a long rebuilding process for the Jets, but I don't think he has like all the tools there yet to succeed or just win 7 games. I mean, and then you go with Saleh. Like, we know Saleh is a great DC, right? Like he's going to put together a good defense, but I've never really seen him as a head coach and what he's going to bring to the table. So if I'm buying into a first-year head coach to hit this over at 7 wins, and where this Jets team didn't even sniff 7 wins last year, it's just a hard buy for me. I mean, look at Saleh the other day. He said in his press conference that he like leaned into the huddle and like was waiting for the head coach to break it down. Then he remembered that he was the head coach. So like, I'm not putting much faith in them. I think they're trending in the right
Off
direction.
of that, you're off Robert Saleh.
I mean, like, dude, you got to know where you're at. I mean, like, if I heard like my coach say that, I'd be like, oh shit, we might be in a long. I understand he's joking and like it's joking around and it's a funny joke, but it's a flag for me for some reason. It is.
I don't know. I like this team. The problem is that realistically, I think that what you want them to be is what the Bills were a couple years ago. And if we remember Sean McDermott's first season, I think it was his first season, the season they picked up Josh Allen, he was forced into the starting role. They went 6-10. And I think that that's a realistic scenario for this team. Maybe they go 7-10. I don't see it happening. I'm with you. I'm taking the under just because this defense needs so much. The offense still needs a little bit. Even if Zach Wilson plays well, I don't think he's going to be a top 10 quarterback in the league or necessarily carrying this team to a huge playoff success. So I'm predicting the Jets to be more of a 5-12, 6-11 team. I don't think it's a bad thing for the Jets. I think the Jets are obviously in a much better spot than they were last year. And I like the coaching staff changes and the other changes that they've made. I just think that this is more of a 2 to 3 year project, and we can see them actually make strides in year 2 under this regime, this staff, instead of year 1 going from a 1-win team to an 8-win team and a near 500-win team, especially with the division, every other team in this division getting better, it seems like. I'm hitting the under on the Jets. You're hitting on the under on the Jets. 6.5. Pretty easy stuff. I think that their under is favored as well. Let me see if I can pull up the odds real quick. While I'm doing that, we can move on to our next team. Let's do the Dolphins because this is an
Yeah.
interesting team. This is the team in this division that their over under raised the most in this division. It was 6.5 last year. It is now up to 9. We all know they went 10-6 last year, missed out in the playoffs, unfortunately. To me, we were saying it before the pod. I treat this team as more of a 9-7 team last year because I truly believe, even though they did win 10 games and they beat the Raiders, I thought they should have lost that game against the Raiders. Yeah, you could probably make the argument that, oh, well, maybe they should have won a game against like the Seahawks, but to me, I think that their true record was more of a 9-win team than a 10-win team. I think if you look at them compared to the other 10-win teams, it's a like 10 plus win teams, it's a little bit of a bait.
Mm.
I'm gonna go under on the Dolphins. I know a whole lot of people love the Dolphins. That they're big. Oh, this is a team that's going to make huge strides on Tua. The offense got a lot better. They had a great draft class. I don't think Tua is going to make incredible enough strides to put this team into 10 plus wins. It could happen. I think if it does happen, it's going to be defensively led. This defense is great. They add Jalen Phillips. That secondary is insane. They add Javon Holland. I really like their defense. But offensively speaking, I don't think Jalen Waddle is going to do enough. I don't think Will Fuller is going to be consistent enough. And I don't think Tua is going to be the guy to just carry this offense to that next level.
Yeah, that's fair too, because the Dolphins are like in that weird little bind where like they showed like major progression, but you're not really sold on Tua, so like they're like in between this little phase is like, are they going to be able to take this next step? And doing that is, I like I like the Patriots more than them, like roster wise, coaching wise, quarterback wise, even Mac Jones. I'm gonna ride with you. I think I'm gonna take the under, and it's strictly not because I love Brian Flores and I do love this defense, like you said, but I'm not sold on Tua. And if this is a quarterback-driven league, and if he has to go out there and win 10 games, especially with teams in their division getting a lot more tougher, I can't really see it.
I could see it. The thing I hate about this Dolphins over under is that with 17 games, I could easily see this as a 10-7 football team or like a 9-8 football team. That's the reason why I'm not a fan of it being at 9 wins. I would like it a whole lot more if it was 16 games at 9 wins taking the under. Oh man, this is such a tough one at 9. I just hmm.
It's like it is tough, but like we're basically saying that with 10 wins. I mean, I guess not even more. If you get 10 wins, not necessarily you're going to make the playoffs with that extra game.
I mean,
I,
yeah, they had 10 wins last year that make it. It really
yeah,
depends
that's
on
a
on the
freak year.
other wild card teams. Like if the AFC South is, if the Titans and Colts are going to be dominant teams again, right? And the AFC North. I mean, they had 3 playoff teams. Are we going to see that again?
Yeah, I don't know, dude. Like it's just like Tua never really like had that little pop out kind of game.
Well, see, I like Tua still. I'm not out on Tua, and I think that Tua has a great ceiling. I think he's still a good player, but now he has to be the guy, and he wasn't the guy last year. And their defense carried them to a certain extent. I'm not sure we see the dominance out of their defense that we saw last year. Teams kind of figured out those cover zero looks to a certain extent, right? I mean, they would force turnovers, but you saw like a game against the Cardinals where they had a pick six. The Cardinals still put up over 30 points against them. Their linebackers. Oh, well, Steed is out. I will see you, Steed. All right, solo pod, I guess. Um, but yeah, back to what I was saying. This team, their defense, it felt like they were getting figured out a little bit. Are they going to be able to create as many turnovers? All right, Steve is back. I'll get you back in here. Are they going to be able to create as many turnovers? I don't know. I'm I'm a little bit more skeptical on the Dolphins, especially their offense, than the public is. Maybe their defense is good enough to carry them. I don't know. Steve, you're fucking everything up. There's like three of you. All right, let me get you back on here. So we're both under on them. Let's move on. Let's do the Bills. So the Bills over under. They shot up from last year. Their over under was 9. They're at 11, a very high over under. We're betting on them. This has got to be a 12-win football team. Are they closer to the Chiefs, or are they closer to just your okay, they're good but not insane level AFC team? I'm going to start here. I like the Bills. I like the Bills a lot. And I'm going to ride with their over, actually. Coming into this, I thought it was a little high at 11, but I think this football team is just a little bit too good. And one of the main reasons that I love this over is because they kept Brian Dable. They still have Sean McDermott. I think the defense is underrated. They completely addressed their number one issue in the draft in their defensive line. They got Carlos Basham and Gregory Rousseau. You just need one of those guys to be a day one impact kind of player. It's a stretch a little bit. 11 games. This is going to be a tough division, but I believe in the Bills. I truly think that the Bills, of all the AFC teams, this is the team that could rival the Chiefs for that number one seed.
Yeah, I love the Bills and I love McDermott. It is because like looking back from last year, it was kind of like choosing the two teams that have really high over unders in the AFC were the Chiefs and the Ravens, and I'm looking at it. I see the Bills as more of as a Chiefs team for me, like you were saying. Like I just think, especially with the extra game, like 12-5 for this team is very easily capable, like being accomplished. Josh Allen is going to be like a easily MVP contender. I believe in Sean McDermott. I've seen him have a top 10 defense before, and with new pieces, and just after how bad the defense performed last year and really holding them back of being even better, I think they take a tremendous step forward and maybe get back into that elite category. And I'm just going to ride with it. I still love Stephon Diggs. I love the roster. I mean, Buffalo's just seems like a great place to play at. I could see this team winning 13 or 14 games. Honestly, I'm more sold on that.
Oh wow, another agreement here. All right, well we're going to the Patriots. I think we both like the Patriots. Their over under is placed at 9, a half a game up from last year. That's probably just due to the extra game. I like the Patriots being a 10-win team this year. Me and you, at least I was kind of out on the Patriots last year. I felt that they had too many holes. It was too much turnover. They weren't a team trending in the right direction. This year, they solved the number one issue I had with this football team, which was their front seven.
Mm.
Their front seven is completely revamped. They have Godchow now. They picked up Judon. They pick up Barmore from Alabama.
Yeah.
They get Hightower back. The holy crap. All of a sudden you go from relying on someone like Chase Winovich to be an all-pro level DN to carry your group to he can just be basically a rotational pass rusher, right? Which was what he was good at. This is a defense that's looking very scary. I think it's going to be a very improved group. Offensively, you pick up those tight ends, which was great because that was the other problem we had with this football team. We did our season review of the Patriots. We thought, hey, this is a team, aside from like the Jets, had the worst tight end play in the league. Now you add Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith, two pretty talented tight ends. They still have a good offensive line. Cam Newton, you hopefully get a non-coup Cam Newton. But even if you don't, you have Mac Jones who could play if Cam Newton isn't going up to par. You bring in Nelson Aguilar. I think that this is a playoff team. And to me, that means at minimum 9 wins. So I'm thinking at least a push, but I'm taking the positive. I think this is a 10-7 football team. So I'll take the over.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna agree on all these picks here.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I thought you were going to go over on the Finns. The other day, you were talking high on the Finns.
Well, Dave, the thing is, like I told you, you have to choose between one of those two teams, the Patriots and the Dolphins, and I like what the Patriots did more in the offseason. If I look at it, I mean, yeah, they have more money to play with, but they addressed everything they needed. They went out there and like I like Mac Jones more than I do Tua, and like they just get all these guys back from the COVID protocols, and then you still have the goat at the end of the day in Belichick. So like it's just kind of hard to pick the Dolphins over this team because I mean there's a chance that both of them go over. I mean that could happen, but like I really don't think that would happen. But yeah, I'm right with you on the Patriots. I like the Patriots.
It's just if we look at every single team, I think that the Patriots easily got like way better than like they in terms of teams that got better, they got the most better. I don't know if that's a word or not, most better, but they did. And their over under only went up half a game. So easily the Patriots over under at 9 is my favorite one of this group. Dolphins at 9 is I think the most wonky. Steed is out again. Jeez. Steed's connection. RIP. But yeah, I think the Dolphins is easily the most difficult to predict because it really feels like that they're a 9-8 football team and they could easily be 10-7. But I'm gonna go with their under, I guess, the Dolphins. And Steed is too. I'm surprised that you're telling me on there. But this is a division, just saying. I went 4-0 on last year, so let's see if we can go 4-0 again. All right, Steed, are you back? Mr. Steed. All right, well, we're moving on. With or without Steed. I don't know. We are going to go on to 2022 quarterbacks. I was going to move on to the top college teams, but I wanted Steed to be here for that one. 2022 quarterbacks. So next season in the college game, I don't know if we're going to do just draft eligible ones. I think for the start, I'll go with draft eligible guys. So guys that will be able to be drafted. Steed, are you here? Guess not. All right, well, we're going to start guys that can be drafted next year, 2022 quarterbacks. So this is kind of just going to be more of a conversation than a rankings, if anything. So we'll start off with some of the guys that I like, right? So right now, the consensus top 2 quarterbacks for next year are Spencer Rattler and Sam Howell. I think right now my number 1 quarterback is Spencer Rattler. Spencer Rattler is the quarterback for Oklahoma. Coming into like the end of last year, Oklahoma was easily one of the hottest teams in college football, and that was in large part because of their offense. This is an offense under Rattler and Lincoln Riley that was just kind of lighting everyone up. And I thought that Spencer Rattler, of all the quarterbacks last year, improved a ton. And I'm expecting him to keep that improvement going into this season, into a non-COVID year. Spencer Rattler and this Oklahoma team, I think of all the football teams that could really make that jump under this offense with them, it really feels like this is the team, right? That this is they finally have a group of guys, and Rattler is the guy at quarterback that could lead them to legitimately getting to a national championship. Maybe not winning it, but not getting rocked in the college football semifinal. Steve, are you back?
I think so. Dude, I don't. I can't live here anymore. I don't understand like how bad one's internet could be.
All right, but we're talking about Spencer Rattler and Sam Howell, the consensus top 2 guys. I start off with Spencer
Mm.
Rattler. I said basically he's my favorite quarterback in college football right now. If I had to pick a guy to bet on to be like the Heisman Trophy winner and number 1 overall pick, it would be Spencer Rattler. This is an offense. They're getting a lot of their guys back on that offensive group, right? A lot of returning starters, especially at the receiver positions. Rattler finally gets to play in a non-COVID year. And we kind of just saw his development over the course of the season last year and how much better that team got from the beginning of the season to the end. So if we can see that kind of transition into this season, I really feel like Oklahoma under Rattler and Lincoln Riley and having this offense is going to be a dominant force.
Oh yeah, well, like that's the thing. Lincoln Riley's always going to have one of these elite offenses in college football. Is no question about it. And Spencer Rattler, I will say, like, he struggled a little bit at the beginning of last year, and that might be due to multiple things. Like he was really young. Also, it just being COVID and like a question of playing or something. But you saw once he really got going, the dude lit it up, and Oklahoma really like benefited from it because then they became like honestly like a team that wasn't ranked like halfway through the season that finished the like season ranked number 6. So he's easily going to be the Heisman favorite, and I think he should be. Like you were talking with Sam Howell, I like him a lot more than Sam Howell just based off like what he brings to the table and just how dynamic of a playmaker he can be.
So yeah, would you say that for you as well, Spencer Rattler is your number one quarterback?
For next year, like yeah, I mean I think that would be like the consensus. Um,
Well, right now it's
really,
almost a toss up in terms of consensus between him and Howell. And I think that
I
we
well
both like
yeah,
Rattler a lot more. I mean, you just said it. I as well believe that I like Spencer Rattler more than Howell. There's actually a couple other quarterbacks that I like over Sam Howell as well, but we can get into Sam Howell. So Sam Howell is the other consensus top guy. I think he's a lot of people's consensus number one quarterback, even over Rattler. But I'm not sold on Sam Howell. I am not sold on Sam Howell. Sam Howell, to me, he definitely has the physical tools, right? He has the tool set to be that top quarterback. But I don't think from what I saw last year watching the UNC games, I watched a ton of UNC games over and over and over again, right? They had a ton of draft prospects I watched on film, which means I watched a lot of Sam Howell. Not necessarily I watched him specifically, but I knew that he was a guy, like one of the top guys. So I did try to pay more attention to Sam Howell than I would just watching any other offense, right? And Sam Howell, I thought was a lot more raw than people really think. I think this is a guy that was able to, that UNC team, when things weren't going right, they had a top tier run game that they could rely on top of two NFL receivers, one of which I think is a legit NFL receiver in Diami Brown. Um, you had they were Michael Carter and Javonte Williams were both good in the receiving game. I thought it was a really well coached team. It really felt like while Sam Howell does have the tool set to be this top guy, he had everything in place around him to succeed last year. And now you have a lot of turnover and talented players. I'm really interested to see how he's going to handle this because if we get the same exact Sam Howell from last season, now I think that he struggles a lot more without those top guys all around this team.
yeah, and that's the thing. We're gonna get a true test if he's real or fake. If he's able to go out there and perform with like not as much talent around him, then maybe I can buy into him a little more. But just for like reasons you said, is that he was on that stacked team. The offense was very easy for me, but like look at the big games he played in, like the Notre Dame's and the Clemson. Like I know like the talent level of players is a little different here, but if you're one of these guys, these top picks, I want to see you take over these games and these big games, and I just really didn't see that from last year.
So, all in all, Sam Howell, he has the talent. We all can agree he has the talent. He's looking like a first round pick, arm talent, quick release, the whole nine.
Mm,
He needs to refine a lot of things. I think the problem with Sam Howell for me is that I feel like he's more of a Matt Corral in terms of quarterbacks than he is that Spencer Rattler, right?
yeah.
I think that he's more in a tier below Rattler for me, not in terms of raw talent, just in terms of everything, right? All things considered, how ahead of the curve are you? Your processing, your decision making, your polish. And I think that he's very unpolished. Whereas Spencer Rattler, I saw him get a whole lot better as the season went on. So, other quarterbacks, right? Those are the top two guys. But who are the other guys? I want to mention a couple guys that I really, really like. And the first one for me is Carson Strong out of Nevada. I
Mm.
started getting into the film of a lot of these college quarterbacks, these 2022 draft eligible quarterbacks, and I think the one that impressed me the most was Carson Strong. Carson Strong, Nevada has a pretty damn good program and have been developing some quarterbacks. If you remember, that's where Jordan Love went. And he was a first round pick. He hasn't played in the NFL, but there were a whole lot of people that had him valued really highly and valued him as a top 10 pick. I personally believe that Carson Strong is better than Jordan Love was as a pure passer. The problem with Carson Strong is that he's more of that classic quarterback. He's a statue in the pocket. He offers you no rushing upside or anything. Um, but in terms of pure arm talent, in terms of a quarterback that just throwing the football, Carson Strong is really good. Right now, I am predicting Carson Strong to be a first round pick in the NFL draft. If he continues on his development, as long as he really doesn't shit the bed, I think this Nevada football team is going to be pretty good. Not anything groundbreaking, right? I don't think they're necessarily going
Yeah.
to be like a BYU from last year, but I think they're going to be a good football team, ranked in the top 25 for most of the season. And Carson Strong is going to really, really have a good year and put himself on the map in this conversation of the top quarterbacks.
Yeah, one guy I like to keep like on the radar because I this is one team I could see really taking the step forward, and especially in this weak Pac-12 and USC is Keaton Slovis.
Mm.
I think like look at his freshman year 2 years ago. I mean, I got the numbers right here. It's 72%, 3,500 yards, 30 touchdowns, 9 picks. And last year he backs it up with like, similar stats for just like how many games they play, five. I I'm looking at his size though, 6'2", 200. So he doesn't have elite size, but at the end of the day, I think he's a quarterback that can play. If he has another big year for USC and like USC makes a little bit of a run here, I think you could see Slovis like kind of creep up and get in that first round category.
Forgot to update the topic. No, I agree. I like Slovis. So it's funny because this is going to sound cliche, but he does seem like on tape just that classic USC quarterback, right?
Yeah,
He's a
yeah.
playmaker, but he has ball placement issues. He has some consistency issues. If you watch his tape, there will be a whole lot of things that you can find wrong. But I agree with you. I actually really like Keaton Slovis. Not necessarily as like, oh well, he's going to be the most insane NFL quarterback in terms of a guy that can lead USC to being that elite level team because we've seen USC have those seasons, right? Like, I really feel like Keaton Slovis in the USC squad is going to be the top team in the Pac-12. Um,
I think they're definitely the favorite. It's going to be them or Oregon.
it really feels like they're miles above Oregon under Slovis. I think Slovis is going to have a great year. He's another guy that I really think is going to end up being that first round pick quarterback. I don't want to make any predictions on whether or not he's going to be insane in the NFL or anything, but in terms of a guy that can really play, he's like a gamer. He's a gamer. He's not crazy good in terms of like, oh, is he the next Patrick Mahomes? But if I had to pick a quarterback to play 1 year in college football next year of all the college quarterbacks, Slovis might be the guy for me. So I think that USC is in a great spot with Slovis leading them, and I think they're going to have a really good season under it.
And you also remember about Slovis, JT Daniels was at USC before, and he was like an elite prospect, like top quarterback of his recruiting class. And then once he goes down, Slovis steps in and takes over that role. And basically after that, kicks JT Daniels out and he has to transfer. So I think that says a lot about him too, like how USC was like, hey, man, like, sorry, JT, but we like this guy better. And I think that says a lot right there.
Yeah, we're both Slovis fans. I know that he has a lot of haters, but I'm excited to see what Slovis does. I really think that he's going to put himself in that tier one of quarterbacks as the season plays out. He's in a good spot with USC. He does have his issues, but I think that he's going to have a nice little season. Another quarterback that I want to mention, a guy that did really impress me. He's very raw. I should have looked up a little bit more about him before the pod, but that's Michael Penix Jr. from Indiana. I
Ah,
know we're all thinking it, but um, this is a guy. He's a lefty, right? He's a lefty. He's got this sidearm quick release. I really, really like Michael Penix Jr. I think this is a guy. He's got fantastic touch. He just I don't know, and I don't know necessarily what it is because he's so raw. But it is crazy to see how good some of his passes are with how raw he is, right? Like the angles that he throws from, it's like it goes against the grain completely. But you see the end result of these plays, and you're like, okay, well, I guess you can just do it, right? Like
yeah.
you can be throwing way off your back foot, super off balance, 35 yards down the field, sidearm release, and it's just pinpoint. And you're like, well, you can't really teach that, right? You just some guys have it and some guys don't. Apparently, Michael Penix Jr. does have it, so I think he's fantastic. If he's able to make strides in his development next year, this is a dude that could really light up college football. Um, he gets one of his favorite targets back. I'm pretty sure as a super senior, Ty Freifogel. This is like
Hell
all
yeah.
name team here in Indiana, especially when they had
Yeah.
Whop Fillier last year. I really like the way that this Indiana football team is looking. I think Penix Jr., he needs to develop. He is super, super raw. His footwork is trash a lot of the time. Um, he has a whole lot more polish to go. But in terms of overall talent, this is easily one of my favorite quarterbacks this year. Penix, Strong, Rattler, those are like the three guys that definitely impressed me the most on my first watching their tape back from the 2022 or 2020 season, not 2022.
I got a interesting guy. The guy from Oregon, Tyler
Yeah,
Show.
he transferred to Texas Tech.
He did?
Yeah.
I thought he's still in Oregon.
No. He transferred to Texas Tech.
What the hell? Oh, well, I mean, it's probably better for him, but I think that system would fit him better. But like, dude, he is huge. I mean, 6'5", 220, and just like, yeah, he didn't have a great season last year for Oregon. I don't know why this still says Oregon, but I think like now if he's a Red Raider and just with that air raid offense, and I mean, you've seen the quarterbacks come out of there just really put up numbers. He could be a kind of a guy that could be a breakout performer. Now is Texas Tech going to win a lot of games? Probably not, because their programs are like kind of in the dumpster right now, and it's never been really good. But I think he could be interesting. We talked about Matt Corral too. Like
Well,
Matt.
I don't want to move off Tyler Shaw because I have some stuff to say about him.
Oh, you can have
Because
him.
I have seen some people say Tyler Shaw is in that tier one of quarterbacks, right? That he could be. I've even seen some people say that he is their top quarterback.
Mm,
I am not a huge Tyler Shaw guy. We're gonna call him Tyler Shaw. I don't know if it might be Show.
uh,
I'm not a huge Tyler Shaw fan. I think that
shoe.
when I look at his tape and I look at his gameplay, I think that he's much more of like that Jacob Eason tier of quarterbacks than that top tier of quarterbacks,
Yeah.
right? He's got the size. I'm pretty sure he has the arm. He has some polish. I'm just not a huge fan of kind of the film that he's put out. And I just think that you look at all the other quarterbacks, there are a whole lot of other guys that I would rather have than Tyler Shaw, both for this season in college football and even from like a scouting, like NFL type of perspective. He definitely has the raw talent to become like that first round pick, that tier one guy. I am just predicting him from what I've seen without some major development to be more of that Jacob Eason tier of guys than that top tier.
Yeah, I think that's fair too. I mean, he look really didn't produce at all last year.
But it's going to be
Guys,
interesting to see. He's in a new
yeah,
system, like you said. That Texas Tech team, they've had some good quarterbacks before.
yeah, they have. I mean, when you're dropping back 50, 60 times a game, it's gonna make your make your stats look
He
a
got
lot
a lot of
better.
reps to prove it if he can
Yeah,
throw the ball consistently or
they're
not.
gonna be chunking that thing. They don't run there, dude. They don't
Yeah,
run. They get 5
we could talk about Matt Corral now because Matt Corral is
yeah.
really interesting. This is a guy, man, you talk about inconsistency. Some plays, some drives, he looks like he's the best quarterback to ever grace college football. And
Yeah.
then other drives you see, you're like, how the hell is this guy starting? I think the first thing that needs to be said about Matt Corral is that this guy has a cannon. Um, I almost like I compare him a little bit to Baker Mayfield in terms of his arm because this guy can throw the ball 70 yards, but
Mm.
he cannot throw the ball accurately 70 yards, right? You saw like there are plays last year where he's chucking it up to Elijah Moore. Elijah Moore beats the defense. He throws that thing 67 yards, right? But he can't throw it accurately 67 yards, right? You don't know what the hell you're going to get when he's throwing it that far. I think his accurate range, right? There's a difference between arm strength and accurate range. I think his accurate range is more around like 50 to 55 yards, maybe. Whereas his arm strength will kind of lie to you and where he can chuck the thing 70 yards. It will be interesting to see, though, another year of development if he's able to increase that accurate range a little bit and
Yeah.
increase his overall game. Because in terms of the raw tools, Matt Corral is everything you could really ask for in terms of a prototypical quarterback. He just needs to put it all together.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think Matt Corral, I will really benefit, especially in his second year here with Lane Kiffin. Okay, I think Lane Kiffin is like one of those like really like elite offensive minds in the college game, and you saw what he benefited from last year. Like he his numbers progressed from the previous year. My problem with him is the interceptions. I mean, if you're throwing 14 and 15 interceptions in college football here, what are we doing, right? And it technically, if you look at some of his throws last year, just on film, it could have been a lot more. This guy could have hit the 20s.
Yeah.
There's a lot of times like he's just throwing it right at the defender, and like the defender, they're playing some JV school out there, and like it just they're playing Vanderbilt, and the dude just drops the ball, which is easily going to be a pick at the next level. That being said, though, with the no COVID distractions really set because everybody's kind of used to it, and another year with Lane Kiffin's system, if he can progress more, I could see a team easily being like, okay, well, he's got the arm strength, he's got the talent. Let's go get our Patrick Mahomes. You know, it's going to be the same thing they
Mhm.
said about Jordan Love and all that. So, I it really depends on how well he progresses. Like if he plays like he did last year, or just like really not showing signs, I think he's going to be one of those like late day 2, day 3 guys. But I mean, dude, if the Ole Miss pops off or he pops off for Ole Miss, like they don't even have to be good. Um, I could easily see people being like number one quarterback right
No,
there.
100%. And it's not even that he didn't show it last year because it's just it was drive to drive. You would get different quarterbacks. You would get, and he's got that weird release, right? It's quick, but it's like it's very compact almost.
Yeah,
Um, man, he just needs to put it together. Listen, every college quarterback can improve their decision making, but he 100% like really needs to improve his decision making. Sometimes I think that he would play a little bit too fast. And I don't mind that at all. I would rather you play faster than you play slower, right? It's just, you can just kind of get baited when you play too fast. You're anticipating a defender doing one thing and he does another thing, and then all of a sudden you're throwing it into triple coverage. And
yeah.
you saw that time and time again where he's throwing picks where three different guys could have intercepted the football. And man, it's just half to half, quarter to quarter, you would see completely different quarterbacks. One drive, you're getting an elite guy. The next drive, you're getting someone that doesn't look like he should be on the field. So he's a guy definitely needs development. But in terms of guys with the highest ceiling in the draft, man, he can make every throw. He can do it on platform, off platform. He's got a quick release. So I think you're right that we could see him be that. Okay, he goes maybe in the mid teens of the NFL draft because he's just got a better arm than every other guy, and he is mobile. It's not like he can't run.
Yeah.
He can throw on the run. He has all the tool sets. You just need someone to hone it in. Okay, there's a couple more guys I want to talk about. Let's go on to Malik Willis first, because Malik Willis, I've seen him get a little bit of hype out of Liberty. This is a
Oh
dude, you
yeah.
talk about raw talent. Holy crap. Like, he has that elite level running ability. You do not see, like, there's a difference between being a good runner and having that, okay, this dude can run, like Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson level running ability, where he just makes guys look foolish. And on some plays, it takes like five guys to bring him down because he's just making so many people miss. Malik Willis not only has that, he has crazy good arm talent too. He can chuck the pill. But you talk about another guy that is just so raw and so underdeveloped. Like, he has the arm talent, but you will see throws from Malik Willis where he will put balls in the stands, right? And that is a
Yeah.
major problem, just because even comparing him to Lamar Jackson, his arm might be better than Lamar Jackson, but Lamar Jackson was really accurate, right? Lamar Jackson's accuracy is very understated coming out as a prospect, and even today in the NFL, right? The problem with Lamar Jackson, there are just some throws he can't make because he doesn't have that crazy good arm. But in terms of accuracy, he's good. Malik Willis has the opposite problem. He can make all the throws. It's just sometimes they're pinpoint. Sometimes he's putting them 10 yards in the third row. And you can't do that. You just don't see NFL quarterbacks putting balls in the stands. So I think that's the problem with Malik Willis. He needs to improve his footwork. He needs to improve everything. So are we going to see that at Liberty, a team that have they had a quarterback drafted ever? Like,
I don't know. I doubt it. I don't think they've had 5 players really ever drafted. You probably count the players on one hand. Uh, I don't know though. Like Liberty was really, really good last year, and
they got a good
yeah, like you
program.
said, is that yeah, they do. It's just it's hard for me to see like a quarterback coming out from like a school like a Liberty and making some headway. Like the guy from Coastal, what's his name again?
Oh, that's Grayson McCall.
Yeah, I like him. I like
McCall.
him more.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, before we move on into him, um, just last thoughts on Malik Willis. I could definitely see him being a first round talent. I just struggle to see a world where he is that early first round pick. Is just to be that early first round guy, even though he may have the raw talent. You just have to have the polish, because if you're taking this guy top 5 in the draft, you're expecting him to play early, right? You look at Zach Wilson and Trevor Lawrence; these guys are going to play day one. Malik Willis, I would be shocked if he develops enough, especially at a school like Liberty, where it's just you're probably just not. I like their staff, I like their program. It's just you're not going to get that NFL level polish from that program. Probably, I don't really know for sure, but if I'm a betting man, I'm betting that you're not. Um, so maybe he could be around like that Jordan Love type of prospect where, okay, he's got the NFL talent, but we need to sit him for a year, maybe even more, to develop him. I think that that's what you're looking at from Malik Willis in terms of an NFL perspective. From a college perspective, I mean, you're getting a playmaker. You're getting a dude that he can carry you some games, and I think that's exactly what Liberty needs. Before we go into, because Grace, I want to go into more of the more like the juniors and seniors. Grayson McCall, he's a draft eligible sophomore.
Yeah.
Or maybe he's going into his junior. I don't know exactly now. Um, Two guys I want to talk about: Dylan Gabriel out of UCF and De'Aaron King out of Miami. I want to start off with De'Aaron King because De'Aaron King is a guy that I have had on my radar for a little bit, and I find him very interesting. There are just a couple major question marks I have with him. So I think what's separating a guy like De'Aaron King from someone like Justin Fields is one thing and one thing only, and it happens to be pretty important. It's just kind of his deep throwing ability. You know, I have questions about his overall arm talent, and I have questions about his just deep ball accuracy. Aside from that, if he shows that, okay, this guy has that NFL level arm and he can start hitting these deep balls consistently and placing them well, the sky is the limit for this guy because he's the total package. And if I'm going to compare him to Justin Fields more, I feel like De'Aaron King is just a little bit more comfortable in the pocket than Fields was. Is a little bit better in the pocket than Fields was. It's just Fields has that crazy good arm talent and was
Yeah.
insanely accurate. So I think that that's just the big thing that is separating De'Aaron King from being an average guy and being that top tier college quarterback.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but I'm not really sold on De'Aaron King. I just like like how I like the guy, right? I like him as a player, but it just feels more to me that he's like a college quarterback than he is at a like going it to the next level and succeeding there for me.
Yeah, 100%. Like, if he's not able to prove that he has an NFL level arm, because I just haven't watched enough film and done enough tracking to really prove it or not. Um, I probably will by the start of the season, but if he doesn't improve in those two areas, he's just not going to make it. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
The NFL, you need to be able to stretch teams vertically, especially the way that it's going now. You see teams like Andy Reid taking these guys with huge arms, and the Bills with Josh Allen running college concepts, but running them vertically down the field, stretching teams super far vertically. You just need to be able to do it, or else, and it has been like that for a while, right? You just got to have that NFL level arm, and if you don't have it, you're really just not going to make it. It's tough to. You have to be insane with your process and just your technique and the fundamentals to not have that crazy good arm. And I think we can all agree that Derek King just isn't there with his fundamentals necessarily. Most college quarterbacks aren't. There's a reason why. So
Yeah.
other guy, Dylan Gabriel, another lefty. Dylan Gabriel is really interesting because this guy has the arm talent. You know he's got that arm talent. Um, and he's like a gunslinger almost, right? You see him when he throws, he really drops that thing down. He looks like a baseball pitcher. He just rifles the freaking thing. I really like Dylan Gabriel. I think that he's kind of being slept on simply because he plays for UCF. And for some reason, like maybe it's the scheme because UCF definitely has that college esque scheme. Um,
Yeah.
he's just all their guys like Gabriel Davis was slept on. A lot of their defensive players didn't really get that national recognition that they had this year. I like Dylan Gabriel. I think he's legit, and I think this is another guy that could possibly go in the first round of the NFL draft if he decides to come out. You have some technique issues, especially with that release that you're going to have from NFL evaluators, but aside from that, this dude can freaking sling a football, and he can rifle it. Right? You talk about a dude that's able to rifle a throw opposite hash. Holy crap. Like I want to see what the velocity on this dude's throws are because he throws
Yeah, I'm looking at
fastballs.
it now. Yeah, I just looked at a video. Golly, he's so small though.
Yeah, he is, but dude, it's like he's got like that Brett Favre type of fastball. Like that thing probably
Mhm.
whistles when he
Yeah.
throws it. It is ridiculous.
Yeah, that's gotta hurt catching that. Oh,
But he's interesting. He's
I
definitely really interesting.
yeah, he'll definitely get look. I mean, the arm talent's easily there. I would think that, teams would want him to, like, add some pounds, because like, I got him here listed at 185. That kinda
Oh
scares.
yeah, he definitely has to. But he's so small. I didn't know he was that small.
Yeah, that's what 24/7 Sports is saying right here. I mean,
Yeah, he
listen, dude, he can
100%
sit
has to bulk up. He just won't
like, I
last.
mean, yeah, he's gotta gain 15, 20 pounds. But
Yeah, that'll definitely be an issue. So that instantly will probably knock him unless he just lights it up. That'll knock him out of the first round. Probably even like the first 2 rounds minimum,
yeah,
right? Like you got to bulk up to like 215 pounds.
yeah, he's gotta gain some mad weight, but just based off arm talent, look at his numbers. Since he was thrown into the fire at UCF, because I don't know if you remember, but their previous quarterback, Mackenzie Milton, like, he, like, died, basically, like, his leg just, like, snapped in half or whatever.
He's
I think he
playing
broke, like, his
somewhere
finger.
now though.
No, yeah, he transferred he might have is he at FSU now?
I think he is at FSU.
Okay,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think he's I don't hold that to me, but I think he's at FSU, that
No,
sounds
I
right.
think you're right. I saw that today.
I mean, dude, but, like, he's already at 7,200 yards, 61 touchdowns, 11 picks. I mean, you like to see the accuracy a little better. I mean, he's completing 60% of his passes right now, but then again, like you said, like, the video I just watched right here, his receiver dropped it, and I think it's because he threw it 90 miles per hour.
Yeah, it's
But,
just crazy that he's that small and has that kind of arm. You just don't really see that very often.
I know.
So yeah, okay, so I'll retract my like this is a guy that probably isn't going to go insanely high in the draft unless he lights it up, but In
He has a
terms of
whole
a
nother year
yeah, he does
to
like
gain weight.
everything with the quarterbacks, everything can change, right? But I like what I saw out of Dylan Gabriel. He's gonna get knocked because of his size. He's gonna get knocked because of the system. But
Yeah,
like just raw talent, Dylan Gabriel, I really feel like has it, and it's always interesting. It's always fun seeing lefties, so I'm rooting for him.
it is fun. Another lefty from Hawaii. How about that?
Yeah. Okay, so let's go on. We got a couple more guys. JT Daniels.
Yeah,
I watched a little
I
bit of
wanted to
JT
talk about
Daniels.
him.
I'm not
You
huge
not
on JT Daniels.
you're not gonna fall into the JT Daniels hype, dude.
Nah, I am not huge on JT Daniels. I just like if I had to separate these guys into tiers, like you've got like Rattler and like Carson Strong in tier one, and then tier two you have like Matt Corral and like just the guys with like major question marks to me. And then tier three is where you have like major question marks and then some, which is like for me, Tyler Shaw, JT Daniels, and then even like a guy we haven't talked about yet, Brock Purdy. Like those guys
Yeah.
for me, it's like you're really gonna have to show me something new or show me something crazy for me to really believe in you.
All
I
right.
think JT Daniels is good. I don't think he's that upper echelon of quarterbacks though.
Um, Let me like vouch for JT Daniels right here. Like you got to understand, like you probably saw film from his 3 or 4 games he played in at Georgia last season.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
This guy was throwing the ringer, right? Like he tore his ACL. Um, Slovis takes his job. He's a late transfer, first of all. Like literally, season's almost starting late. Gets to go to UGA, still recovering from the torn ACL. Gets COVID-19 and then is thrown in for like the last 4 games. And remember, they only play 10 games too. So him being able, like, you would feel him learning the offense was probably hard, first of all. Like, he really wasn't able to go fully into it. So now you get him with a season where he's like, he knows he's the guy. He can really build this team around him and get his own little offense. I think that then like he's open to like way more possibilities. It sucks that he loses his number one receiver because George Pickens could have made him look so good in certain
Yeah.
areas, but I still like Georgia still has so many athletes that can play, like not maybe Pickens level, but like where JT Daniels could easily have success.
No, I'm not writing JT Daniels off, and I agree with all of what you said. Like, it was a tough situation for him to show up on film and be insane. I just I when I watched those games last year, even just from like his mechanics and his ball placement and everything else, I just wasn't really hugely impressed. I think he could be good, and he's a big ass dude, right? Like,
Yeah, he is big.
you know, I think he'll be good for UGA. I just I haven't seen anything yet for me to really separate him from a Brock Purdy or a Tyler Shaw, really, right? I think that's the problem I have. So, I mean, this is a big season for him. He can make or break his entire football career in this season. We can move on to another guy, Brock Purdy. This is a really interesting dude out of Iowa State. I don't think he really played quarterback until his senior year of high school. And I
Oh
know
wow.
that that first game last year, he struggled against the Raging Cajuns in a loss. But then after that, Iowa State just got better and better and better and better and ended the season as one of the hotter teams in college football. And then now they come in, they still have a lot of their good players returning, including guys on their offense like Brees Hall and Charlie Kolar. They got a couple good defensive players. So this Iowa State team has a lot of expectations now, and a lot of that is riding on whether or not Brock Purdy can really be that guy. Before,
I
because we're going to talk about all the teams, let's just stick with Brock Purdy for now.
Yeah.
I'm not huge on Brock Purdy. I think he's good, and I'm definitely keeping an eye on him. But if I were a gambling man, I'm not going to gamble that this guy is going to come out and be that tier one of college quarterbacks by the end of next year.
Yeah, I'm not really insanely high on Brock Purdy. He falls into that little category with me that he's a college quarterback. Um, It could prove me wrong because, like, at one time, like, before Burrow broke out, that's kinda how I saw Burrow, but I don't know, like, it just there's something about him that, like, when I, like, relate him to, like, someone in this class, he has that kinda just, like, day 3 vibe where he's like a Ian Book or Ellinger or something like that, and,
Yeah,
like,
I'm
I
kinda
I
getting that vibe, like that Ellinger vibe more than I am the Joe Burrow vibe, because
yeah, like,
I
it's
mean,
just I
because
feel
I
like he's
agree
just
with
middle of the
you.
pack guy.
When we saw Burrow in was it 2019, 2018, that season before he popped off,
Mhm.
I mean, he was a guy. I remember we were watching that game and I was like, dude, this Burrow guy is like good. Obviously, I was neither of us were thinking, okay, he's going to be the number
Oh,
one overall
yeah,
pick
we
and
didn't know
lead the best college offense ever.
62 touchdowns.
But he was a dude that I was like, okay, you compare him to like Zach Mettenberger and the other top LSU
Yeah,
quarterbacks to go through the program. I was like, okay, well, he can definitely play better than those guys, right?
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think you're right in that Brock Purdy is on the other end of the spectrum than the possible Joe Burrow. So let's start talking about some of the other guys. This is another guy I really like, Jaden Daniels out of Arizona State. This is
Yeah,
another dude probably needs to put on some size, but holy crap, he has everything you could really want in your modern day quarterback. He's got a crazy arm. He's pretty accurate. He's mobile. I think that Jaden Daniels is a guy that really has potential. He's a dude that I've had circled for 2 years now that can really fly onto the scene this year. The Arizona State, they played like what, 4 games last year?
yeah, if
Something
that.
stupid. So he didn't really get an actual chance to prove himself last year. I think this year he could really fly onto the scene, really carry Arizona State. I'm liking the way that that program has been headed. So Jaden Daniels for me is one of my big potential like guys that could go crazy this year.
Yeah, I think he's trending up just based off, like, you didn't see him much last year, and then you look at the success he had the year before. Um, I'm with you though, like, that he has to gain weight because I got him listed another guy at 185 right here. You
Yeah,
know?
he's just small. That's the big problem is that he doesn't have that prototypical build, which if he doesn't gain weight and he doesn't pop off on tape, it's like that's just something that's going to knock him down. But I
Mhm.
like his talent, and I think that because it's so far removed, like remember that game Arizona State against Oregon where he basically outdueled Justin Herbert. Um,
Yeah.
I like Daniels. There's definitely the concerns, but I am really excited to see what he can put out this year. So now we can start going into some of the other quarterbacks, right? So some of the guys I have left on my list: Emory Jones, the quarterback out of Florida;
Yeah.
Grayson McCall out of Coastal; Graham Mertz out of Wisconsin, and a nice little sleeper that I liked his film. Um, what this is almost like one of those guys that when I saw with Joe Burrow, I'm not expecting anything, but I like what I saw. That's Phil Yurkovec
So,
out of Boston
BC.
College. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that he was all right. Like I don't think I liked him as much as I liked Burrow that 2019 season, but he was a guy he was nowhere on my radar. I'm watching Hunter Long, their tight end, and I'm like, dude, this Phil Yurkovec guy can play. Like he's he has some potential. You know, he could definitely play. He's 100% better than your average ACC quarterback, right? Like so he's another dude that I have on my radar. Which one of those guys you want to talk about?
Oh, we could talk about the Yurkovich real quick. I'm looking at him, dude. Um, I got a couple notes on him. One thing, two things that I think is big. First of all, it's going to be his second year in the scheme, right? But the next thing is he gets his whole entire offensive line back, all five
Yeah.
guys. And I think that just they'll play like so huge. Having the confidence knowing that you're the number one guy. This guy's huge, right? He's 6'6",
Oh yeah,
230.
he's a big ass
Like
dude, and he's a gamer
this
too,
dude's
which
a
I like.
fridge.
You know,
Yeah,
he's
this
the
dude's a
kind of
fridge.
guy that because that was the one thing about Burrow that I liked and everyone else really liked was that he's a gamer, right? He's the
Yeah.
kind of guy that he can do stuff off script. When things are on script, he's getting the ball out on time. He's got good ball placement. Like I feel like I get a little bit out of this Phil Yurkovec guy. Like dude, I get a guy that when the play breaks down, he's creative. He can make things happen. You know, he's okay. You know, here's a Y cross, but I see this safety bear down. I'm gonna throw it behind my guy a little bit because I see the leverage, right? I get that gamer out of him, which just really transcends offenses to another level when you get a guy that's able to do stuff like that, and then you can really trust him. Second year in the system, he's got the physical tools. I'm really excited to see what I can see out of this guy.
Yeah, I am too. And the thing about BC is they just have these playmakers at quarterback, right? BC is just between Matt Ryan and this Yurkovich guy, just playmakers.
Yeah. Okay, so like you said before, Grayson McCall out of Coastal. Coastal was a team that I think shocked everyone. I really like their coaching staff. I like their offensive philosophy. Now I think the big question for McCall, because he really bursted onto the scene. He is
Yeah,
draft eligible. He's either a sophomore or junior, one of the two. Um, so he's on the younger side. I think the big question for him, though, is was he a product of just a good coaching staff and a good offensive philosophy, or was he the reason they were able to run that stuff? I think that that's the big question mark that I have with Grayson McCall going into this season, because I think that Coastal has one of the best coaching staffs in all of college football, and I expect these guys to really be getting looks moving up to bigger and better programs.
yeah.
Chadwick, I think the guy's name is.
Mhm.
Just looking at their offensive design, it is brilliant what they are doing. Um, and I think a lot of teams have almost started to go in more of that direction of what they've been doing. So that's the big question mark I have with Grayson McCall right now.
Yeah, I think that has to be true. Again, I haven't really seen much on him, so like I can't get a good tell. And Coastal's going to be good again, right? Like you would figure, like with the same staff and probably bringing back a good chunk of their players, they're going to be good. So he could just benefit from that again. Um, but I think he's the kind of guy that's going to stay like his whole like college career. Like I don't think he's going to get like huge draft like attention unless like he is this insane guy. But like after next year, you would think that Chadwick and that coaching staff is gone, right? Someone's going to pick him up. Some elite program is going to take him and be gone. And then, like, you kind of see, like, all right, maybe, like, now that you don't have this elite coaching staff here, were you just a result of like a system, or are you like the real deal?
Yeah. Okay, couple last guys we could talk about. Emory Jones, quarterback of Florida. This is an interesting guy. Definitely does, from what I saw, the limited throws that I saw from him, doesn't really feel he has the NFL polish, but he's dynamic. I'll give him that. And he can throw a fastball. The question is, can he do it all? Because we saw a guy like Kyle Trask really light up the SEC. And while Kyle Trask had his issues, in terms of a college quarterback and a dude that just had touch and could play against the big boys, he was great. Are we going to get that out of Emory Jones this year? I don't really know.
If I was bet man, I don't think so. I am out on Emory Jones.
Why is
I
that?
I don't believe it. I think it's just all fake hype. This guy, when he came to Florida, was supposed to be the number one guy. Like, oh, Florida got this dual threat quarterback. He's about to take it over, and then he would come in for a couple plays, but he wouldn't throw it, and then like it just didn't really impress me when he ran. I've watched a good amount of Florida games. I don't think I've ever seen him complete a pass. Okay, I don't think I've ever seen him complete a pass. They would have design runs for him. They wouldn't work. They just didn't work. If they're Florida fans out there, they're going to be pissed off because usually Florida fans, I'm cheering for y'all like every UGA day. But I'm just out on him, dude. There's something about me that I'm not buying stock into Emory Jones. Like, I mean, if I'd rather have DeCarrot King than Emory Jones. Okay,
Well, yeah, I'll agree with you on that point that you brought up. In that, I think a problem with a lot of these dual threat quarterbacks that come out of high school is that they're more of runners than they are pure passers. And to a certain extent, especially in the modern college game, it is trending. Like the college and NFL games are morphing together, like more together than they ever have been before. And
mm,
that means that you have to be a pure passer, especially like you can get away with it if you have the running ability of like, the top guys, like the Kyler Murrays, the Cam Newtons, the Lamar
Yeah.
Jacksons. But if you can't do that, and your team isn't just ridiculously good around you, you need to be able to throw the ball as a pure passer. And that is the big question with Emory Jones is that, okay, the guy's big, the guy's athletic, he could probably run. But is he going to be enough of a pure passer, especially because you have to replace Kyle Trask, who just threw for like, what, 4,500 yards and like 40 touchdowns? Like, you have to replace that guy who had insane success. Can Emory Jones do that now his first year starting is going to be a big question. I do agree with you. Like, if you're a gambling man, you're probably betting no.
I'm easily betting no. I would hammer it. It's just I hate to like make it seem like I'm not an Emory Jones fan, but like based off his like playing, I don't like. If he was so good, if like this guy is like so talented and everything, like why was Felipe Franks and Kyle Trask starting over him then? There's got to be something that was holding him back. And now that those two guys are gone, and you got to put all your chips in there, I would be taking a hard look at maybe looking at the backup too, or having a good backup for Florida. Because like I do not see this guy. If I throw you into the fire pit and you got to play a Bama defense or a Georgia defense, I don't think he would. I think his QBR would be lower than like a 10. I just don't think he'd be able to compete with it. I don't think he's there with the game. I think it moves too fast for him. It's just there is something about his game I don't like. I don't think he can keep up. Be honest with you.
Okay, the last guy I want to talk about is Graham Mertz out of Wisconsin. This is a guy was a very highly rated recruit. I think he was in the one of the recruiting classes. I think it was the class of 2019. He was like the 21st overall recruit and like a
Wow,
top 3 quarterback. And he just
nice.
hasn't really gotten his shot yet, right? Because of the COVID season last year.
He got
And
COVID.
oh, he did?
He started the first game at Wisconsin and lit it up. They like blew out whoever they were playing, and then, like he was getting some attention right there. And he got COVID the next day, and then like that bumped him out. It bumped him out a couple weeks, and and then at that point the season's over because they only played 7 games,
Yeah.
6 games. So like, but like I
So
do
this is a
remember him.
guy. It's interesting, like because you're right. I did have that in my notes that he came in just lit it up.
Mhm.
I didn't know he got COVID. So he gets
Yeah,
COVID, can't play basically the rest of the season.
he lit it
Wisconsin
up.
has a meddling season, right? They were just an average Wisconsin team at best.
Yeah, I mean they're gonna do what they're gonna do.
But
Pound the
now,
football.
non-COVID year, another year in the system. There's I feel like not a ton of expectations right now on this Wisconsin team. All the eyes are on the other teams right now in the whatchamacallit? The
Big Ten.
yeah, the Big Ten. So this could be a guy that really lights it up, right? Because okay, yeah, the people in Wisconsin are hyping him out, but right now all the attention's on basically every other quarterback in the NCAA aside from Graham Mertz, right? Like all the attention, oh Brock Purdy, oh Sam Howell, Spencer Rattler, all these guys, and then Graham Mertz is able to kind of go in here with the chip on his shoulder. He played that one game. He knows he can play.
Yeah,
We could see this guy explode. And everyone's asking, oh, well, who's going to be the Burrow? Who's going to be the Baker?
I think it's this guy right here.
Who's going to be the Zach Wilson? It could definitely be Graham Mertz. It could
I think it is this
100% be
guy.
this guy.
Dude, just based off that one game, he lit it up, dude, and he was the talk of the town. And then, like, of course, he went out there and partied afterward and just caught the vid. But like, out of those guys you named, I'm taking this guy over him, just like off the hype and everything.
So yeah, he checks a lot of he has the physical tools, showed he can play. So I'm gonna be really interested to see what he can do on this Wisconsin football team. A lot of these other Big Ten teams are being hyped up, and Wisconsin seems to be the guys that are of the top Big Ten teams, kind of going under the radar, right?
Mhm.
Um, so now with that being said, we can kind of get into just some college football talk. What teams we think are overrated, what teams we think are underrated. Oh no, I'm changing the wrong thing. So, Steed, let's just kind of go first things first. Can anyone dethrone Bama this year? Is this the year that Bama's getting dethroned?
I mean, to be truthfully honest, no. No, but I think so. Like Bama, uh, we know Bama's going to be in the Final Four, right? Like, but the thing
100%,
is,
like yeah, basically 100%. It's very
like,
dicey if anyone's gonna beat him.
and like the team that could beat them, it'd be like their little brother, like little Georgia finally does it. That they have finally a halfway decent quarterback. But still, I don't know, take a Saban over that. LSU's got to prove something, but as long as LSU doesn't have 30 seniors and Joe Burrow on its team, I don't think it's really going to be up to par. Then you got, I think Texas A&M's the one that could do it to like dethrone Bama and the SEC. I think they would be the guys to do it. But the
Well,
thing is
that's kind
about
of the next thing I wanted to talk about is like not necessarily who's gonna dethrone Bama to a certain like who's that number two team. Okay, who's the other great team in the SEC aside from Bama, right? Who's it going to be this year? Because it seems like it's been kind of a carousel every year between, okay, one year it's LSU, then maybe it's like a Florida, then it's an A&M, then it's a
Auburn.
Georgia. Like, okay, Georgia's probably the favorite to do it,
Hmm.
but so you're thinking Texas A&M is okay? They're the other SEC huge threat.
Yeah, because like out of the coaches in the SEC, who is the next best coach in the SEC other than Saban? It's Jimbo Fisher, right? I would easily like some people might say Kirby, but like Kirby doesn't have the winning pedigree that Jimbo does, and they had a lot of people opt out because of COVID last
They had a
year,
sick year last year.
and they were
They're
really
a
good
good
last
football
year
team.
for like a younger team. Like they had some younger players on there that had to fill roles for these guys missing out on COVID. They got it, and I know they lose Kellen Mond. That's a huge L for them. But the guy that coming in, I think he can be transcendent enough in the game and elevate this offense to higher standards.
Yeah, who is that kid? Because he's like a 5 star, right? He's like a super hyped recruit.
Yeah.
Because now we can start talking about some of the other quarterbacks, the non-draft eligible guys. Because there's him. You got it's Bryce Young, right? That's the Bama quarterback.
Yeah. They got Bryce Young now.
So Bryce Young looks pretty good. I saw some of his play later in the season last year when Mac Jones would just get subbed out, and I thought he looked pretty good. Yeah, obviously, he's raw. He's probably nervous coming in with his first action playing for Bama, but
Mm.
the kid can play. He's pretty good. Um, but A and M is
I think they'll be
interesting.
fine. Yeah, they're
Um,
interesting because I just think they're like they took a huge leap this year, and I don't think it's like it was a fluke at all. Like you look at some of their games they play, they beat good teams. I mean, they came back, they beat Florida, and they ran the West, they ran the SEC. They only got blown out against Alabama, and I think if they played Alabama again, it would be a lot closer. Now, I'm not saying like they beat Bama, but like I'm saying
that
if they got
Bama offense was just insane.
yeah, like
No
you
one
would
was
have
beating Bama with that offense.
you would have need like so many things to go your way. You would have need like a couple like 3 or 4 turnovers and that turned into points, and you were able to get off to an early lead and just controlled the clock after that. And still, that wouldn't even happen because Mac Jones would have probably just found Devontae Smith for a 75-yard touchdown.
Yeah, like
But
it was just insane that offense. Like it was unfair. But now this year, I mean, every year we say it. Okay, Alabama's got moving pieces, but I think the one thing that we can agree on is that in recent times, the Bama defense has had more holes than it usually did. Right? Because
mm,
in this Saban power Bama era, it seemed like every year, okay, their defense is just freaking ridiculous, right? They just have guys at every position. They're destroying teams. And not saying that the Bama defense was bad the last year or 2 years ago, but like it definitely was nowhere near as dominant as it usually was. And it was kind of the offense that became okay, these offenses under Tua and under Mac Jones are just absolutely freaking absurd, putting up like 35 before halftime.
yeah,
Um, but now it's like, okay, you got a whole bunch of moving pieces. you have basically you're going to have a whole new receiving core aside from Mechie. You have a bunch of moving pieces up front of your offensive line, new quarterback, new running back. They're probably, I mean, young and all those. They have a good running back behind them, so it's probably going to be pretty good. But you really never know. So maybe Texas A&M could bridge the gap a little bit, right? Just a little bit, and get to the point where you don't have to have everything go perfectly for you to be in that football game.
Yeah. I mean, that's what you're hoping for. I think it's going to come back down to quarterback play because I'm looking at the quarterbacks right now. They think it's going to be Haynes King, who was a 4-star. He was a true freshman last year. He threw a touchdown last year. He threw it against South Carolina. Let's go us.
Nice, nice.
um, I think this is the guy we were talking about, right? The 4-star recruit. He's
Yeah, he
state
was like a
champion.
4 or 5 star recruit. He's really hyped. I've been
Yeah,
hearing rumblings from the Texas A&M fans about this guy being really legit. I think he played
yeah.
well in the spring game too.
He apparently he's like he's a dual threat guy. He can run. I like this too. He would like in high school. His dad was the coach, so like just kind of knowing football your whole life. That's kind of how I mean, we talked. I don't know why Burrow's name keeps on coming up, but like Joe Burrow's dad was kind of like that. You
Yeah,
just
a lot of the quarterbacks have that actually.
yeah.
It's kind of interesting.
Well, I think that's just like a plus because it's like means that you grew up around the game, you're knowledgeable of it, like you can kind of come in. So like a guy like that, dude, like I mean, Texas A&M doesn't need Johnny. I'm sure they want Johnny, but if this guy can come in, make a few plays on his feet, give you a little support.
They're gonna have a good run game too with who's their running back? Is it Ingram? Is it him or was that Texas last year? They have a nice little running back.
Isaiah Spiller.
Yeah, Isaiah Spiller. There it is. Isaiah Spiller is great. When I watched that Texas A&M tape, he's a damn good running back. He's probably like a top 5 college running back right now. Um, so yeah, like their receivers should be better, right? They had like 3 receivers opt out last year.
Yeah, you get them
So
back.
I agree with you. Like I think Texas A&M is legit. Uh, so I think we kind of are both on the train that Florida might be a little overrated right now. That
Yeah,
they could because right now they're a top 15 team. I think we both agree that they might struggle a little bit. Who are some other teams that you think? Oh, here's a team that I really like, and we were talking about it before. Is USC because
mm,
right now I think preseason USC is 15. I think this is going to be a top 10 college football team when it's all said and done. I
uh,
really think that USC under Slovis, they got a good group. I like this team. I think that this is one of those USC teams. It's kind of giving me that USC team under Sam Darnold kind of vibes,
mm,
where they ended up like 6th in the country, winning a Rose Bowl. I'm pretty sure, or maybe they lost it to or I forget exactly what happened in that season, but um, they were a good team. I know that. I feel like
yeah.
that this USC team could really run the Pac-12 and be like a top 6, top 7 football team when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I think I like them to be a top 10 team too as well. Like it's just the thing with USC is like it seems like they got the quarterback right. Like they got
Yeah.
Slovis, so like you feel like that was a position they've been lacking maybe since like Matt Barkley was there, and I'm talking about like junior year Matt Barkley, not senior year Matt Barkley. But like the thing is like you play in the Pac-12, and the Pac-12 sucks. It's like to me, it's the worst conference. It's just so bad, and to my knowledge, unless there's like a freak like come out like a Washington or something, I think it's going to be USC and Oregon. Right? Those are going to be the 2 teams fighting for the Pac-12. There's 2 things you got to do to for a Pac-12 team to even have a shot at being talked about to make the playoff. You have to go undefeated, and you got to win your conference. Right? Those are the 2 things. And then like with that, your resume is like up there, but like they're still not sold because the committee would probably pick a like a 1-loss SEC team over you, like a Bama or A&M. But think about it this way: now that they do have a quarterback with NFL hype, and Slovis, and if they do, like, have a really good year, it's kinda gonna be like how Kyler Murray kinda got in the playoffs because everybody wanted to see Kyler Murray in the playoffs, right? That stuff is true, like, Slovis could easily find himself in the playoffs with 1 loss if he has, like, a really good year, because like, that's what is gonna drive up the views. If USC versus Alabama is the playoff game, that's gonna sell that like, a lot of people are gonna wanna watch that game.
Yeah, I'm just gonna. I want to kind of want to go through like the preseason top 25. So Oklahoma's right now number one. I think they're legit. Okay, Bama's legit. Georgia, they're number three. I
They're
especially
gonna
without Pickens, I'm not putting them top five preseason. Like if I'm a betting man, I'm not betting on them being a top five team right now. I think they'll be really good, but I think that they're going to be one of those teams that just slightly misses out on that top four.
yeah, I just think, for them Georgia's gotta get through, like, that little problem they always have of where they get upset by one team.
I feel like it's
What the
gonna. I
heck's
just
going
don't
on?
think that they're like. I don't think their offense is legit enough right now. Oh, we lost Steed again. He's been in and out. Clemson. I like Clemson, especially just because the ACC is so trash that I think that they just kind of have a generally easy time of going undefeated and being a top four squad. Ohio State. I really like Ohio State too. As long as they're able to get the quarterback, I think Ohio State is going to be a very legit team. Iowa State at number six. That is super interesting, just because on paper, their team is really
Mouse.
good. But yeah, you back, Steve? All right, Iowa State. I like their squad. I think they have a good football team. It just feels like it's gonna kind of happen what happened last year. They're just gonna have those one or two losses where they don't. It's unfortunate they make some mistakes and they're not able to overcome, and that kind of just knocks them out. A&M, we both said we liked. UNC, I think is pretty overrated right now. The guys that they lost is just going to be really rough. Um, Cincinnati, I like Cincinnati, but man, top 10 for Cincinnati. I don't know. They lost some good freaking players though. Hudson, Wiggins, Jared Dokes, one of their running backs. Like I don't know. It's tough to really buy heavy into Cincinnati right now with all the guys that lost. But I really like Desmond Ritter. Oh, I think we forgot to talk about Desmond Ritter.
Yeah, we did.
Oh crap, we forgot Desmond. I love Desmond Ritter. Though. I think he's legit. So I think he can kind of carry Cincinnati. I've been going through the top 10. So just surmise because I know you've been out. I said
Yeah.
Oklahoma legit, Bama legit, Georgia kind of frauds, Clemson legit, mainly just because the ACC is so easy that their road to
Yeah.
being undefeated is pretty simple. Ohio State legit, as long as they're able to get a halfway decent quarterback. I think their team is just going to be better than it was last year. Iowa State kind of frauds just because I see them losing those one or two games where a couple things go wrong and then that blemish on their record is going to kick them out of that top five, top six scenario.
Mhm.
A&M legit, North Carolina frauds, Cincinnati. I think nine might be a little generous, but I think they're
Wow.
more legit than they are frauds. Like I think they'll be around the top 20. I'm just not sure nine. I think nine is a little high.
I can't believe they gave him 9. That's crazy.
Now we got Oregon at 10.
No, get Oregon out of there.
Yeah, I think Oregon's kind of a fraud. They got a
They're
lot of
trash.
returning starters though, but I'm just not sure they have that top end. Indiana,
Trash.
I think, is legit. I really like this Indiana football team. I think their biggest loss was Jamar Johnson.
Mm.
But you get 9 returning starters on offense, 9 returning starters on defense. You got a whole lot of great players coming back. As long as Penix is able to recover from that torn ACL, I think this would be a great football team. Notre Dame at 9. That's interesting. Or no, Notre Dame at 12. I mean, um,
I they're always contenders for me.
yeah,
Uh,
I think they'll do it. I really like their what's their head coach?
Brian Kelly.
Yeah, I really like Ryan Kelly. It's just God forbid you get that man a legit quarterback, and Notre Dame will really be a force to be reckoned with.
Well, remember who was that quarterback they had? Was it Everett Goldson?
Jimmy Clausen.
No, not Jimmy Clausen, dude. He was so bad, bro. He was so bad.
Okay,
um,
we only got a couple minutes left. So USC at 13, I think we both think are legit.
mhm.
Iowa at 14.
I mean, they'll be a top 15 team. I was like the definition of going 10-2.
Yeah. Washington at 15.
No, I mean, like maybe, like I could see like Washington being that sleeper team in the Pac-12 that beats a USC Oregon team, like because like
Yeah, I like that program.
yeah, they're good. I mean, they're the last Pac-12 team to make the playoffs, so
Um,
get
I
steamrolled.
think I'm lukewarm on them. The Raging Cajuns at 16. I like the Raging Cajuns. I think this team is good. I think this team is actually really legit. You get 10 returning starters on offense and defense. I think
Oh
this
yeah,
team is nasty. And you got to watch out if you're playing the Raging Cajuns.
yeah, they should be set to go right there.
They had a whole bunch of coaches go to the NFL though. So Florida at 17, I think is pretty fair. Wisconsin at 18, we're both thinking this could easily be a team that's a lot better than 18 when it's
I
all
think
said and done.
I think they're easily going to be a top 10 team as long as like they stay healthy.
What about Ole Miss at 19? What are you thinking on them?
Nah, I think that's a little like hype because of Lane Kiffin, Matt Corral, and they brought in a good recruiting class, but like that's because their pedigree and it's Lane Kiffin. But like, just look at the other teams from the West. I like Bama more. I like A&M more. That's 2 losses, right? So that
Yeah.
immediately probably kicks you out of that kicks you out top five. Who else do I like? I could see like Ole Miss still struggling with like an LSU or something like
Yeah,
that.
well,
Like,
that's the next team we were going to talk about is LSU at 20. I am not huge on LSU.
I mean, who's their quarterback? I mean, I know they had like 3 or 4 of them last year. They were just
Hmm.
experimenting. That was a tough
Coastal. I
one.
like Coastal a lot. We
I
got
did
2
too.
minutes. Texas Longhorns at 22. We both love Texas. It's a Texas podcast now. A&M and Texas, we're riding. Uh, I just I like Sark. I'm a big Sark guy.
Yeah.
Penn State,
No,
yeah,
they're
frauds.
awful. They're
Arizona
awful.
State, I think, can be legit. And then lastly, Miami Hurricanes. I actually like Miami this year. Um, it sucks those defensive pieces they lost. I'm also just not a huge fan of their coaching staff, but I think Derek King is nice, and I think that this is the year that they could finally make something happen in the ACC because I really feel like aside from Clemson, like I just think that North Carolina is nowhere near as strong as they were last year. So I feel like Miami could overtake what North Carolina was last year.
Well, the thing is, Miami's getting thrown right into the ringer week 1 playing Bama.
Yeah, fuck. Big game for Derek King.
Yeah.
But that'll do it for us here. Mainly a college football episode. We hope you guys enjoyed it. If you made it this far, thank you so much for listening. If you're watching on Twitch, hit us with a follow. If you're watching on the tube, hit us with a subscribe, rate, review, comment. We answer everything. But thank you so much for listening, and peace out.
Peace.